Okay, so we left off talking about how to calculate board feet for each of these individual pieces, even including this little accent strip that we used. And we got a decent amount of extra. How does it look like for us to be able to buy this, right? So I can't just necessarily go to Helena Hardwoods or even Home Depot or Lowe's or whatever and just say, like, I need 0.01823 board feet of maple, please. One board 0.101823 maple, please. Can't do that. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to buy an actual board. So yes, even though I'm using just this tiny, tiny strip of maple that I don't know why is still glitched out on Onshape, but just this tiny strip of maple, I'd have to buy an entire board. Like, there's no way around it. It's kind of like I use the analogy of cookies pretty frequently, right? So like if I wanted to make chocolate chip cookies, I need one egg. I can't just buy one egg. You can sometimes buy 6 eggs, but generally you just get stuck with 12, right? So you're going to have some leftovers. You know, if you start woodworking, you're going to have tons of scraps eventually. It's just the way that thing goes. So what does it look like for this piece of maple? All right, so let's transition back to one of the sheets that I gave you. We are looking at the calculations for Helena Hardwoods. So I'm looking specifically at that soft maple, which is right here. And then it gets really convoluted because you're going to see that I've got a few different numbers. Sorry, this is kind of blurry. It's not the highest quality image that they had on the internet, but I have got two numbers. I've got 4/4 and I've got 8/4. Now, 4/4 is something called a nominal dimension. What you're going to see is that I've got 4/4, which is nominal, and 15/16, which is actual. Same down here. I've got 8/4 and I've got 1 15/16 actual. Okay, let's draw this out. So what's happening? I go out into the forest, I chop down a big maple tree. I take that maple tree, I cut it into a whole bunch of little slabs. Looks something like this on the side. This would be the length. You guys have seen me make this drawing before plenty of times. Don't mind that this looks like a doorstop or a wedge. Don't at me for drawing terribly on the spot. So when I cut this, let's just say I wanted to make what's called a 4/4 inch board. They basically call this a 4/4 inch board because I wanted to get this in terms of quarters. 4/4 just is the same thing as saying 1 inch. I don't really know the origin behind it. It's just they wanted to call it 4/4, right? But you're also noticing that it says 15/16, right? Okay, so I go through, I chop out this board of maple. I make sure that it is 4/4. Length, it doesn't really matter. Width, we can determine later on. All I know for a fact is that I've got a board of maple that is 4/4 inches thick, so 1 inch thick. But then as time comes along, we get all of this. If you're looking at the grain structure inside of here, this starts to shrink, right? There's tons of moisture trapped inside of this maple tree. And as that board starts to dry out, it starts to shrink this way. And then also, it starts to shrink this way. And it gets warped and it gets cupped and it's not a nice 4/4 board anymore. So then what happens, we end up re-milling it. So we go through that same squaring process one more time. Where I go through, I make one face flat. I go through, I joint the best edge. I make sure I get a nice parallel surface. I cut to width. And I cut to length. Well, if you started with a 1 inch board, That actually looked out a lot cleaner that time. Nice. If we started with this being a 1-inch board or a 4/4 board, they ended up trimming this down quite a bit. And that final dimension is 15/16 of an inch. Okay? That's what they're saying in this sheet. So in this sheet, if we look for soft maple, and it says that they have a 4/4 inch board, and then they remind you that this is 15/16 of an inch thick, you're not getting a 1-inch board. When it was cut and it was initially processed, it was 1 inch. It was 4/4. Now, us woodworking and construction type people, we're pretty simple. Don't call me stupid. We're just simple. We like things simple. I don't want to tell you that this is a 15/16 board of maple. I don't want to tell you this is 15/16 maple. I want to tell you that this is 4/4. 4/4 rolls off the tongue. It's really easy to say 4/4, 4/4, 4/4, 4/4. 15/16, 15/16. No, that's not fun. I want to make it simple. 4/4, 4/4, 4/4, 4/4. Okay? So, this is called nominal. This is literal. This is actual. Okay? It's the exact same thing that you're going to see with 2x4s. Now, we're not going to use 2x4s to make construction lumber unless you really, really want to. That's just softwood. We just beat the crap out of it. We don't need to. So, we're going to use the actual. So, all of this being said, if I needed to calculate how much one tiny little strip is of maple such that I can have an accent for my cutting board, I'd have to start with the smallest piece that they have. So the thickness here is 15/16, which means that I can essentially take this and get it down to what I need. So I would need that thickness. We're going to eventually mill it down to 3/4 of an inch. So that right there, this little section right here, we start with an actual. Once it's nice and dry and it's not going to warp anymore, we are going to switch to a 3/4 inch thickness, and I can just go mill that down, and then I can cut my 1/4 inch strip off of this. We need to buy this. So, a couple updates to then back to our purchase list. Let me zoom out. Our bill of materials. I know that what our price of wood is going to be once I check the sheet, but I need to know that for my wood, my maple, I'm going to put this down here. My actual size, I need to get a 15/16 inch board. I need to get a nominal size of 4/4. And the price I can see it on the screen, but not in my IRL vision. $6.15. That is a $6.15. Okay, so purchase list. Price of our lumber. Oop, I missed a step. If I go to the price of wood up here, our maple, $6.15. Now, in hindsight, I kind of built this entire packet like a couple hours ago. I think it's going to be good, but it's kind of, you got to jump back and forth a little bit, I'm realizing. Which is fine. So if I wanted to just know how much this entire piece is going to cost, just in terms of board feet, like you would put the price of the maple up here. So soft maple, $6.15. You're also going to use that same price. I forgot to put a column down here. Oh, I see. I don't know how long of a board we have. Let's just do that for now. For the maple, I do need 15/16 and 4/4. So that would be the actual size. What you might notice is that there is something else in here that has a different price. Like maybe you have a smaller board than 15/16. Let's say you have a cutting board that you want to make a solid 1.5 inch thick. You want a nice butcher block, right? So your thickness of your board, you might need a little bit bigger. And if we go back to our soft maple, I could buy an 8/4 board that is 1 15/16 inches thick. It's just going to cost me 20 cents more per board foot. So if I, instead of wanting only 3/4 of an inch, wanted an inch, almost 2 inches, I would get the 8/4 board. Okay, so your task, we need to figure out what the total cost of your board is. Now, again, I jumped around. Your purchase list, this is going to tell you what boards you're actually going to need, okay? If you get an actual size board that is smaller than what you're looking for, it's not going to work out. That's like going to the grocery store saying that you're going to make spaghetti that needs 3 pounds of beef because you're inviting your friend Billy, who's on the football team, who eats more than you know what to do with, and he needs exactly 2.5 pounds of beef, and you, just to sustain yourself, need 1/2 pound of beef. You go to the beef store, you don't buy 3 pounds, you only buy 2 3/4 pounds, right? You need to overestimate for this, okay? You need to have too much. So even though I've only got a board that's 3/4 of an inch thick, I need to get a board that's at least 3/4, but more than that, you need more. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to cut too much on accident. It's nice to have that excess, okay? So you need to get boards that are over. So this maple, that was 4/4. Actual size is 15/16. Your nominal size is 4/4. And then the last thing is that this also says something called SLR. What's nice is that Helena Hardwoods actually provides a legend. So if I go into the lower right-hand corner, you should be able to look and see definitions, SLR, straight line ripped one edge. Straight line ripped one edge. So I'm going to assume that's maybe S3S? No. Straight line ripped one edge. One edge at least is straight. So it makes it nice. Okay, so that should be your bill of materials. Should also provide you an ability to get a purchase list, what exact boards you will need, which will then help you make decisions as far as how much this could potentially cost. So if I were making this at home and I didn't have any maple at all, I would need to buy one entire board. And it's going to cost me $6.15 per board foot. So it's roughly like $20 for a board. Okay, so once you have this, why don't we go ahead and just calculate how much that piece of maple costs. So if I do, on my calculator, I've got 0.01823. That's my board feet of my maple. Multiply that by $6.15. Whoops. $6.15 for each board foot. That's going to come out to 11 cents. Actually, it's 12. The lumber stores don't want to get ripped off. They want to rip you off. So we have to round up. So this is 12 cents. Be good to your math teachers. I'll put that 0 there. Got 12 cents. That's how you do it. Good luck. Be good to my sub.